Hey everybody, we are out for yet another wet and wintry beach monitoring. We are out tonight at Penrose Point State Park and we're monitoring a second location. We were out last night doing a bit of wet beach monitoring, part of our community science program. And we're out again tonight. I've got my umbrella today to try to keep me a little bit more dry, and I'm using the microphone. So let me know if at any point it cuts out on us. We do have a bit of wind today, so I'm trying my best to use that. But if you don't mind, go ahead and post it in the comments where you're watching from. That'll be useful for us to look back, and if you have any questions at any point, you can answer them. I try to answer them on the fly, but it's not always possible to read what's on the screen and walk on a slippery beach and think of things to say all at once. So forgive me if things get a little crazy out here. Our community science team is already hard at work, and they're right now busy shouting numbers out to one another across the beach as they're measuring the slope and how this location has changed since the summer. So what we'll do is I will flip my camera around and get my lights down so that you can see a little bit better. But yeah, go ahead and post in the comments where you're watching, and I'll fire up my very strong flashlights here, and we'll take it away. It is a very soggy, wet night, although it is surprisingly warm. I think it's about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, which for January is a little nuts. We normally get this kind of warmer weather for about a week or two in February. We call it the Pineapple Express because it brings a bunch of warm, wet weather from Hawaii. But looking at the beach, it's hard to tell what's dry and what's wet. A little crazy, but here we go. We're getting into some scientific areas of study. We've got the plot markers here for some oysters. And this is an attempt to kind of recruit some native oysters to this beach. And so our crew will be out counting that a little bit later. Last night, we had a really great low tide. Tonight's tide is even lower. We'll get about a -3 foot tide about an hour from now. I can't promise I will go live this entire time, but if the weather and the wind permit me to, we'll do our best. Just noticing there's a little tiny fish just tucked underneath that rock with the red algae. Tide pool sculpin. We'll try to focus on a few more of those that are a little easier for me to crouch over. I can't go diving right in first thing. Oh, there's a lot of them. Okay. So these fish, once you learn to spot them, this one's a female. Oh, and there she goes. Okay, sorry. Once your eyes are kind of trained up to see these fish, then they become a lot easier to notice. So here's one right here. Notice how they have stripes running kind of horizontally across their body from left to right or right to left. That helps break up their shape so they're less noticeable to predators. And they kind of have that white and brown and black splotchy pattern that works really great in this barnacle kind of covered rock habitat here. And these are sculpin. They're a type of fish that doesn't have a swim bladder. So when they're not actively swimming, they sit and crouch on the bottom. They're more kind of little ambush predators, eating copepods and amphipods, little tiny crustaceans in the water. And there are so many crustaceans for them to eat. We'll focus on more, but there's a bunch of little shrimp in the water. They have little reflective eyeballs, although the camera doesn't pick it up super well. All right, we're coming up on our team here, so let's take a look and see what they're doing. Hello, Stina! And the rest of all these rain gear clad people. Our stellar team of community scientists. I am mic'd up, so it's probably pretty hard for anybody to hear you guys, but what have you found tonight?
We had a bit of a longer beach than our Penrose 2.0. We're at our third monitoring site, and think the highlight has been some sponge.
Ooh!
Some sponge on the big,
Oh, on the big rock?
Glacial Erratic bouldery one.
Cool, I'll go check that out. A big sponge is cool. That's not a typical intertidal animal, so we always get excited to see them.
Leg eggs.
Good.
Journals. Some fun.
Nice.
It kind of feels like Groundhog Day for us at this point. We're like,
Didn't we just do this?
yeah. One thing that is cool is right over here is one of our oyster flops.
Yes.
So all this shell is.
Yeah, we passed one oyster plot a second ago. So here's what Sina's mentioning. All these oyster shells are brought here and deposited as an attempt to kind of bring in and create a breeding ground, or more a settling ground, for the Olympia oysters, the native species that's found here. And anytime you get into the shell debris, you can find some really kind of interesting things. This is one of my favorites. This is called a slipper snail. And it's weird because it has this kind of shelf at the bottom, and it creeps along and just sort of sits on there. There's also some sand dollar, this is called a test of the sand dollar. You can always tell a dead sand dollar because they have this opening in the center. A live sand dollar will never ever show you their mouth. And then the dead ones are kind of neat because you can take a look and see their kind of pattern of how their shell is put together. I just love shell piles like this. You can find fascinating things in here. So our team, one of the things that they'll do is they'll do this photo survey here. So they got a very waterproof camera, thank goodness, and they will take this and place it over sections of the beach at regular intervals, and take a photograph, and then that data can be used by scientists later for future study. They can be collected and used now for counts and things like that. That's pretty fun. So the tide's already going low since I got here. This is marking kind of about the 0 foot tide, so it's still going out. We've got about a -3 foot tide today. I wish it were not raining. If I could control the weather, that would be ideal. Of course, if I could control the weather, I could probably control the tides, and I would choose to have low tides on only the best, loveliest weather days. Here's a nice example of some sea lettuce, and this one actually looks like a leaf of lettuce here. So great. This is not a plant, although it sort of superficially resembles a plant in that it's green and it does photosynthesis. It makes its own food through a process of photosynthesis using this beautiful green chlorophyll algae. But it doesn't have tissues, it doesn't have roots or stems, it doesn't have seeds or other specialized body tissues. It is just a bunch of cells that are really well organized, which is weird but cool. And we have red, green, and brown. There's a lot of red algae on the beach, a lot of this filamentous red. As we get into lower tidal heights, we'll probably see some Turkish towel. And then as we get into maybe like the -2 foot or -3 foot tidal height, we'll see some brown algae, some kelp out there as well. Just walking along, notice it's getting a little murky here, and for good reason. Look at this. Look at this sudden creek formation. This is not normally here. This is all drainage from up on the watershed, up higher in the forested area of the park. It's all going to shed water off and flow right down here. But I am noticing we're right in the middle of a sand dollar bed, so let me carefully navigate over here and show you some of these adorable little baby sand dollars. Ooh, it is windy. I nearly got blown over. Hold on. Let me change my position. Okay. So we're looking at a bunch of sand dollars. Now there are both live and dead sand dollars here. The live sand dollars look kind of fuzzy all over and are darker in color. And they are filter feeders. They're gathering plankton from the water, and these ones are just babies. So this will get about as big as my palm, which is cool to see. I have to be really careful where I step. I'm stepping in the bare sand areas. You never really want to walk across a sand dollar bed if you can help it. They're about as sturdy as potato chips, so by walking across them you can damage them. They are pretty resilient creatures and they can regenerate, but anytime we can lessen our impact, that's good. Let me point out these two tiny baby sand dollars. They just happen to be in this little clamshell, and for scale, that's how big we're talking about right now. Tiny itty bitty sand dollars. Just love it. I don't know if I really want to cross this creek here. Maybe we will. I haven't been down to this part of the beach in a long time. Normally, our efforts are focused out on the big, long peninsula that sticks out into the sound during nice low tides, but we'll go explore somewhere new today. Why not? Wow, lots more sand dollars. So I have to be careful where I step. Oh, here's a cool shell. This is the shell of a heart cockle, which is a type of clam that sits on the surface rather than buried down in the sand. And so they avoid predators by kicking out their foot. We did a Facebook video, maybe about 2 weeks ago out at Purdy Spit. Here's another one. And I demonstrated that by placing a moon snail next to a clam and watching it run away. Wow, this is really just racing along here. Crazy. This goes to show you what a lot of water in a short amount of time can do. So here we've got another oyster plot. You can see all the shell debris here. The oyster shells are white, but then they get this layer of slippery algae called diatoms on them. And they are a weird creature belonging to the dinoflagellate group, and they're really diverse and cool, and they have glass, like the same molecule that makes up glass is found in their skeletons, kind of reinforcing them. Let's see. Ooh, it is blustery out here. Oh, and there are so many of these little sculpin, and all the ones that are really large in the front are females, and they're holding on to eggs. And these are kind of a social aggregate species. They'll get together and lay their eggs in gigantic masses, kind of a strength in numbers kind of game. And we see that with a few other species. Lingcods will lay their eggs in a group with others. So do squid. Oh, and our first Seastar of the night. What a beautiful one. It's about as big as my boot for scale. This is a lovely mottled Seastar with just beautiful coloration. They're called mottled stars because their gills and their skeleton are often two different colors. So this one has orange gills with kind of a light blue skeleton. And then if we look closely, try to move and get rid of that glare a little for you, you can see this one weird little worm hanging out there. That is a scale worm, and it's a commensal organism that lives on the Seastar like their entire life. Oh, here's a good find. This is some Japanese eelgrass, which means we're probably to the point where we'll start to see some of our native eelgrass species, which is really very productive and interesting habitat. And all this fresh water is really kind of mucking up the surface water, making it difficult for me to see down into the shore, and then the waves are picking up too, so it's getting kind of blustery out here. I'm going to turn back and head the other direction on the beach and hopefully find even more cool creatures to show you. All of these little sticks that you see kind of poking up out of the water, those are tube worms. I always call them bamboo tube worms, but I think there's a different name for them. They're like two-tentacled worms or something like that. This is a great example of this filamentous red algae that branches just so beautifully. This is a really nice species for pressing. It presses really beautifully and makes gorgeous prints. Stina made a tutorial about seaweed pressing. You can find that on our YouTube page. And speaking of YouTube, all of you, if you're not followers of or you're not subscribers to the Harbor Wild Watch YouTube page, you definitely should be. If we can get 1,000 subscribers, I think we're almost at 450 or so right now. If we can get 1,000 subscribers, we can go live on YouTube as well, and that'll help get our message of stewardship and sustainability out to even more folks. So you should definitely go subscribe to that YouTube channel and tell your friends and share and all of that too. We appreciate all the ways that you guys share our live feeds and comment on our videos. That all helps to get our message out. Of course, we are a nonprofit organization, so if you feel compelled to support our efforts in inspiring stewardship financially, you can do that on our Harbor Wild Watch website, harborwildwatch.org. We really do appreciate all the interaction that we get from everybody on these awesome low tide programs. We have plans to bring you even more and some really cool interactions too. Did you break another pair of knee pads? Ooh, nice. Oh, Hazodi's got fancies. Ooh la la. Are those zip ties I see? Nothing but the best. All right, like I mentioned, we're a non-profit organization, so if you want to donate, we could be sporting some very... oh, Stina! Stina's molting!
What's up, everybody? Are we punchy?
We're a little punchy. It's the second night out at Penrose Point State Park doing very wet beach monitoring. It is 55 degrees. It is toasty. Cool. Well, I'm going to head down the peninsula and I'll check in with you guys later.
Okay, we're going to
do your thing.
I guess we could start with that, Ashley. We could probably get this one done.
more surveys.
Yeah, cool. All right, we're going to go find creatures.
Did you see some Olympia oysters yet?
I did not. Show me some Olympia oysters. Good luck.
We normally had like 20 in it last time.
This is a sad plot.
This was a sad plot. I did talk about the slipper snail shells I saw.
Those got imported.
Yeah, I know. They're not from around here.
Was it? I think we see them
Every once in a while. We used to see them a lot. Oh, she got excited.
That's what we should
There's
do.
a timer.
Actually, seeing the shells is kind of fun because you can see the
Yeah, here's the dead one.
little...
Oh, a dead one. Yay, a dead Olympia oyster.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is kind of the size of the oyster we're looking for that we outplanted in...
So these are little guys. They've been here a couple of months.
3 months.
So they've been here 3 months. They haven't grown much, which makes sense. It's cold weather. There's not much plankton. It's not very warm.
Like, I need a better example.
Stina's going to tell me something cool about them.
Yeah.
All right. Find a better example.
Okay, wait, actually, here's a light.
Ooh, okay.
Isn't gonna...
Well, you won't show what you want.
But this is Patrick.
Oh, Patrick.
Everybody say good luck, Patrick.
Good luck, Patrick. All right.
Live long and happy and don't get eaten by the red rock crabs. Kind of a nice feature of the Olympia oyster is how they grow.
They're
like
concave a little bit.
goes out
Oh, okay.
instead of like on the Japanese oyster.
They twist a little. So there's a little bit of a twist on the Japanese oysters,
Right here.
but the Olympia oysters just go straight from their growth center.
They go on slightly.
Good luck, yes. Farewell. Yeah, cover them up. Don't let the red rock crabs get them.
But I do want to find
Wait. Here's Stina. Is this one? Wait. Ugh. Is that an Ollie? Or just a really shiny? No, that guy right there. No?
They were ones I had.
Hard to say.
what I'm looking for are these little
There's little.
these little teeth.
Okay. There's little divots and teeth on the side of them that help you age them. That's a barnacle. Oh, another live one! Hooray! Lucinda, there you are.
I'm sad to find live ones.
No, this is really great.
Hooray.
Good job. Lucinda, fairly well.
Snuggle in.
Let's keep naming oysters after people.
connected.
It's always when you're going to talk about it, right? That you can't find one. That's like, I know so many animal species names. I know all kinds of different plants and botany. And then somebody says, hey, Rachel, what's this? And then my mind goes, woo, we don't need that knowledge.
Flicker snails for days.
Yeah.
Olympia.
It's kind of a funky looking one. Maybe.
I don't know if it's or roses. What is interesting is this nice 10 by 10 square that was.
It was nicely squared.
Has like blasted.
It has scattered oysters far and wide. So even though they're not living oysters,
It's wild.
they move.
I bet
They migrate.
I was like, oh, okay, which species, that's which number they're in, right? And you're like, but then we'll avoid what she was in yesterday, which was forgetting to write half of the information that was getting yelled out.
Oh,
And then we had to,
Stina.
backtrack. She's like, we're out here, it's 11 o'clock at night. And,
Oh,
anyway,
yes. Work smarter, not harder, right?
tune in tomorrow for some more oyster information. We'll find some good
We'll get
examples
some-
for you.
Yeah. I'll bring you a backpack and you just put all the good examples in your backpack. And we can talk about. Oh, sorry. I'm just teasing you. All right, let's go find some more sea stars because now that the tide has gone out a little bit, we should be able to see some pretty good examples of a few of our spiny-skinned animals, the echinoderms. Echinoderms are very different from us. They have no bone, no brains, no blood. They use seawater as their blood. They have radial symmetry instead of bilateral symmetry. So you and I have a left and a right on a sea star. They don't have a left and a right. They could be sliced up like a pie, and each piece would look the same. Whereas if you tried to cut me like a pie, every piece will be different. Please don't do that. This is a theoretical experiment only. Okay, we're getting into shrimp territory. And by that, I mean everywhere are shrimp. This looks like a Sitka shrimp to me. They're kind of roughly translucent and a little bit greenish hued. You can see their eyes kind of reflecting the light of my flashlight here. And they are absolutely everywhere. On New Year's Eve, it was really kind of fun. We were out at Narrows Beach and were able to, it was just dead calm. No wind, no rain. It was beautiful. I mean, there was a little rain. You can't ever escape fully. But it was great because we would hold our lights into the water and the plankton were attracted to the light and it would swarm it kind of like moths, which is really cool. Here's a pocket of just a ton of the shrimp. Like I said, they're everywhere. The shrimp are fairly nocturnal because they're delicious and fish absolutely would love to eat them. And so they're a little more protected at night when they come out. Also on this rock, there's a chitin. This looks like a woody chitin. Woody chitins are probably the most common chitin we find here at Penrose. But we do occasionally see mossy or hairy chitins. Let's see. I'm also going to have my eyes peeled for maybe a moon snail. As the tide goes lower and lower, we kind of get into more moon snail territory, which is great. Last night I was out and we stumbled across a family of raccoons that was here foraging along the shoreline. About 5 of them or 4 of them, I think. And it was great, except for I went back and looked at the footage and you can just barely see their little eyeballs reflecting the light. Not unlike the shrimp we just saw. Ooh. And now that I say that, they are out again. Okay, we're just going to keep walking. We're just going to do our thing. And off in the distance, you might see, I saw at least 2 little pairs of reflective eyeballs aiming at me. Don't really want to scare them, but I'm not much threat to them, and I don't think they're... Last night I just walked right past them. They didn't seem to care at all, so we'll just go with that plan tonight. it's actually kind of refreshing to see natural predators from the forested areas of our parks coming down to feed in a very natural way. Other predators that we would see doing that same thing would be river otters. Coyotes will come and scavenge on the beach as well, looking for whatever they can find. The raccoons, though, are actively foraging. They are looking for creatures like fish and shrimp. Let's see if I can focus my beam on them a little bit stronger. I see at least two. One, two out here. Maybe more. This is where I wish my camera were as great as my eyeballs. Okay, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe? And they're lucky. They have a fairly waterproof coat. They have long outer guard furs. And then they have softer, kind of warm furs underneath to help insulate them. So you can see them with just moving their little fingers down underneath all the rocks. They have these great sensory fingertips, so they're able to kind of really strongly feel, oh yeah, they got something. Looks like a little crab maybe. Super cute. Love these guys. But they do get a little accustomed to having humans around and can be a bit of a nuisance in terms of going through your garbage or messing with like your cats or any cat food or dog food that's left out. These guys will find it for sure. They're very well adapted to finding food and being active at night and during the day. I know locally in a couple places people have had problems with them, in particular Point Defiance Park, with people feeding the raccoons, trying to really tame them and keep them used to people so that they're not very afraid. This one closest to me looks like a juvenile. He's about half grown, so probably a year or a little less old. The other ones are a little bit bigger, and they are just totally ignoring me in favor of finding these crabs and things, which I don't blame them. This is dinner time. There's a lot of food to be had here. I'm gonna kind of walk around. Don't mind me, little creature. Goodness, you are cute. Hopefully you guys can see how really shiny they looking. And that's all the water that's just beating up on their fur. And they're really going after everything under the logs. They found this big log here, which is a great place where fish would be hiding. That's a pretty common spot. The larger rocks don't really move as much, and so small creatures can really get underneath there and hide during the low tide and then come out when the tide returns. So the raccoons just have a brief window here during the low tide. All right, I'm going to try to pass them on my way down the beach without scaring them too much. It's hard to judge distance, but I'm about 40 feet away from them right now. All right, back to sea creatures. I don't often get to talk about mammals. I should probably brush up on my mammal skulls. Most of the mammal education I do is with our skull collection, which is one of our most popular digital workshops that teachers have been requesting. So if you are a teacher, or you know a teacher, and normally I would say a local teacher, but now that everything is digital via Zoom or Teams, we can get into a lot more classrooms. So have your teacher friends reach out to us, and we can schedule a free classroom workshop. We've got a lot of digital programs that we offer. You can find information about those on our website, or you can just shoot me an email and I'll let you know what we've got. But our skull workshop has been really, really popular. It's just kind of fun. It's one of the few workshops that we can do that's not hands-on digitally, but is still really cool. Kids really enjoy seeing the animal skulls. And what we do is we kind of teach kids how to read a skull and figure out what animal it could have come from. All right, so I'm looking right here at a red rock crab. Hard to say whether this is a live crab or dead crab, although I would guess live since I don't see any predatory snails. There are these little dove snails that as soon as a crab dies, they sniff their way to it and can kind of eat through the jointed areas of the crab's carapace. Another really good clue that you're looking at a dead crab instead of a live one is that it will be stinky. And if it's ever upside down, it's not alive. Live crabs do not want to be upside down. All right, here we go. Here's another beautiful Seastar here. This is another mottled star. And what's kind of funny about these stars is once the water leaves them dry, they can't really move. They're kind of stuck, paralyzed wherever they are. And so sometimes they kind of pose in these funky positions. Stina did a great Instagram post a while back about like, what's your Seastar mood? Because she was finding lots of Seastars in very funny, awkward poses. So you should go check that out. Oh, here we go. Nearly walked right by it. We've got another mottled star. This is a nice blue one. Super cool to see. If you're just joining us and you want to post in the comments where you're watching from, that's great. We are out at Penrose Point State Park on a very wet, surprisingly warm night. It's about 55 degrees Fahrenheit out right now, and it is just dumping rain. But it's not seeming to bother the sea creatures that are here. We've got an ochre Seastar, a little bit brighter color and more stout of an animal than the mottled stars. These guys have kind of more of a pronounced skeleton that sticks out. And this one is nicely illustrating those suction cup tube feet, which is a feature that all animals in the echinoderm phylum have. So we were talking about their radial symmetry and their spiny skin, and that is another kind of feature that they have, is those suction cup feet. Some of them use them for like gripping onto rocks. Others use their suction cups to like gather plankton from the water. But they all have them. Even urchins, which look like big spiny balls, also have those little tiny tube feet on them, which is kind of cool. Okay, I gotta stop and figure out where I am. Okay, I know where I am. We're kind of just at the beginning of the peninsula that sticks out into the bay here. And it's exposed on any low tide, but on the very low tides, we get a bit more beach exposed than usual. And so that lets us see some more interesting creatures. Already tonight we've looked at some shells, we've seen some raccoons, we've seen some Seastars. Ooh, speaking of, here's another beautiful Seastar. This one's got another one of those commensal scale worms. And that's a little worm that lives on the Seastar. Now, Seastars have some pretty cool adaptations for avoiding animals living on them because they breathe out of their skin on the top surface. So you can kind of see the squishy, kind of orangish parts of this animal. Those are the gills. And then hidden amongst the gills, kind of down in their skin, are these tiny little pinchers called pedicelaria. It's kind of a fun experiment. If you see a Seastar in person, you can gently like place your arm hair or like your knuckle hair on the Seastar, and those invisible little pinchers will come out and grab it. Speaking of invisible, I just noticed this very well camouflaged crab who has just molted. So let me show you this. We've got the empty shell there, the littler one. That is vacant. There's nobody home because this crab has come out of it. And I'm not going to touch this crab because it is soft as a marshmallow right now. But you can see they get about maybe 30% bigger, 50% bigger, something like that, with each molt, which is just amazing. And this one hasn't even regained its color yet. So in the next couple days or so, that shell will harden and that little crab will be able to be protected and safe. For now, it'll probably just hide underneath a rock, and that is exactly what those raccoons are out here looking for. They feel with their little feet down underneath the rocks, looking for hiding crabs and fish and things like that. So, oh my word, is it windy out here? I did not know that it was supposed to be a windy night. All right. So when we get into the lower tidal heights, we'll start seeing more softer bodied animals like anemones. We'll see a lot more of these sea stars. Gosh, this is just so blue. Look at that. Gorgeous. Love to see these animals out here. Sea stars have a really interesting way that they eat, and that is that they don't really put food into their mouth. Instead, what they'll do is they use their suction cups to stick to whatever prey they've managed to capture. They're usually pretty slow moving, so they're eating things even more slow moving. So barnacles, mussels, invertebrates that don't really move. And then they will invert their stomach, and so the stomach comes actually out of their mouth and then begins to digest using various enzymes, whatever's underneath them. And then they kind of liquefy that and bring it into a slurry and absorb it that way. The scale worms that we see living on them, they actually will eat the stomach kind of digested sections as well, which is just wild. So their sea star is not only their shelter, but also their food source. And it was thought for a long time that they were just a commensal species, so they didn't benefit the sea star at all, and they just sort of lived off of them. They didn't harm them like a parasite, but they didn't provide benefit. But scale worms and other species have been shown to provide benefit to their hosts. So it just is probably not very well understood in this species. Lots of blue stars out tonight. This one really showing off that gorgeous mottled coloration where the skeleton is kind of bluish underneath, and then they have those orange gills on top. Oh, I can't get enough of these guys. They are just beautiful. Last night when we were out, I was able to find some squid eggs, so I'm keeping my eyes peeled for that as well. And trying not to get blown over. My goodness, this wind is something else. Here we go. Another mottled star. And I'm noticing there's a couple of shells here. This is a jingle shell, which is a clam-like animal. There's one right there underneath the sea star, and that's probably what they're eating. And my guess is these shells have come off because their insides have been eaten, and then the shell just falls off the rock. I forgot to post it this year. I can't believe it, but I have a really funny meme I made that says jingle shell, jingle shell, jingle shell on a rock, because that's just... Hi everybody, I'm back. I apologize. I lost my balance and my thumb hit the end stream button. And I couldn't cancel it in time, but I just wanted to show you this moon snail that we've come across. So I noticed a very clean looking moon snail shell that was flipped upside down with a bit of broken shell showing right here. And when I turned it over, we can see this awesome operculum here. This is telling me that there is a snail alive inside here. And if we look at this, you can see some kind of growth rings here. Those kind of mark the different seasons. And so I would probably say we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe a 5-year-old snail here. And those correspond to growth rings on their shell as well. So here's from here to maybe here is a year's growth. And this is the newest growth. And this has been broken off. And whenever we see moon snail shells, that have been broken. I'm gonna get blown over. Okay, I'm gonna stand up just so I don't fall. Whenever we see moon snail shells that have this broken edge like this, it oftentimes means that a red rock crab has tried to eat the snail. The snails can stay inside those shells for hours at a time. They can't really breathe inside there, but there's not much movement happening. They don't have a ton of metabolic needs while they're in their shells like that, so they can remain hidden for hours at a time. And usually the crab will just give up. The crabs are vulnerable when they're sitting out in the open trying to break into a moon snail shell, and so that can be a deterrent for them. Okay, so here is very clearly a dead red rock crab. I can smell it. It's upside down, and it's got kind of this black coloration on it. But if we take a look over here, we've got maybe a live one, maybe a dead one. It's hard to tell when they're upright like this. I don't see any of that black bacteria on it, but I'm not going to mess with that crab because that is a very, very big one. Love it. All right. Oh, thanks, Lindsay. I will, be careful. As careful as you can be in the dark by yourself on a beach in the middle of winter. At least I know the park is closed and I know I'm the only one here. At least the only one out on this portion of the beach. I do have the rest of my crew way off in the distance, and there's a handful of raccoons chasing me. Probably looking for different things that I maybe have disturbed here. Just like checking under these big rocks. All right, let's keep walking along, see what we can see. Hopefully there's a few more of those sea stars or maybe some squid eggs. We're getting into the kind of lowest point of the tide right now. And we'll be going live again tomorrow night at this same location. Here we go. Another gorgeous blue star. Yeah, and you're right. I am noticing there's a lot more of these blue stars. And here, this one's perfectly showing off those commensal scale worms on them. So this one has one there and one there. And I would be willing to bet there's probably a few more underneath. There's another. But yeah, the blue really does seem to be a very prolific color out here tonight. I don't know why that is. I don't know why the blue ones, maybe it's blue for winter and red for summer, but then here we go. Here's a gorgeous red, bright orange one. It's always nice to see these beautiful, healthy looking stars. This one's got kind of a nice pattern on it. And we can look and see those suction cup tube feet, the kind of sure sign that you're dealing with a echinoderm if you got multiple little suction cup feet. And a nice radial symmetry here. Man, these are just gorgeous. Love to see so many healthy stars, especially because our area has been hit hard by Seastar wasting syndrome. And there's been a kind of a new study that came out where they're hypothesizing that there's maybe a bacteria that creates almost like a microclimate right next to the gills of the star and suffocates them. It basically uses up the oxygen in the water that they would be using up, and that may be explaining the die-off of the sea stars. So interesting that more research needs to be done on that. All right. I always like to check out these big glacial erratic rocks because they're somewhat permanent structures on the beach, and a lot of animals will use them as a spot to hide. So here's kind of a more typical coloration of the mottled stars that we see. I don't want to say you're drab, you're beautiful, but yeah, it is interesting that we're seeing more and more blue ones. Yeah, weird. Still lots of shrimp activity. All the puddles are here. You can't really tell, but I'm very carefully picking my way across the beach and stepping in places where I would assume that there's not very many creatures. So I'm looking for piles of kind of shell debris and smaller rocks to step on, so that I'm not just crunching creatures with every step. Because as you can see, there's a lot of life here. This here is a chitin, a beautiful, very primitive species. But when I say primitive, I don't mean ill-adapted. I just mean this is a creature that was found in the fossil record and is largely unchanged from the very, very prehistoric animals that were around before the dinosaurs. So, kind of just amazing the survivability of some species of animals. And mollusks really have diversified significantly across their species. So we talked about the echinoderm phylum, which have radial symmetry and tube feet and spiny skin. And then you have the mollusks, which their kind of defining characteristics is a shell, or sometimes not a shell, a radula, and sometimes a modified radula, squishy bodies and hard bodies. Like there's a lot of diversity in their body forms. All right, I'm gonna just take a quick look around, make sure nobody's sneaking up on me, no raccoons about to pounce, no giant kraken in the water. Yes, exactly, Reese. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Exactly. The evolution is precisely that. Oh my word, you guys! I'm gonna have to wrap up this broadcast because it is just so windy out here. I would turn around and show you, but I'm sure I look ridiculous right now. Woo! Getting blown around the beach. Okay, I'm gonna call it a night, friends. Only so I can, I have to walk backwards through this to keep my umbrella from flipping inside out. Let me try to find one more cool creature to end on. We're kind of getting into clam territory. Hopefully I can find a pitted clam without too much searching, or maybe another beautiful Seastar or a moon snail or something. Or maybe the wind will just quit. That would be ideal. If we're going to wish for something, might as well wish for better weather. But it's January in the Pacific Northwest. We can't really complain. This is good salmon weather. Now's the time of year when chum salmon babies are hatching in their streams and heading out to the estuary around about March. Oh, here we go. Here's a beautiful, beautiful Seastar. We can end on this lovely high note. Look at this. Don't you love it? I could just stare at these guys all day. So pretty. So with that, I will wrap things up. Again, I will encourage you to head over to our YouTube channel so we can get enough subscribers to go live on YouTube, and that will allow us to go live in a lot of schools' classrooms. Right now, there's very few school districts that allow Facebook Lives to be broadcast, but we will post this video to YouTube later this week, so it should be shareable there. And again, if you are a teacher, remember you can always reach out to us and take advantage of some of our digital programming that we've got going on right now. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight on this kind of wild and wet night. I hope you're much more comfortable and warm than I am. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back live again tomorrow. Hopefully we'll find even more crazy cool creatures. So yeah, signing off.